forgive me for not being able to remember who said this, but you know, sometimes when you hear something, someone phrases something in a really interesting way that just sticks with you and you're like, oh, that like untangles this for me in a really interesting way. I heard someone say that one of the big changes has been that like sort of luxuries have become much cheaper and much more accessible, right? You can probably both remember when like a flat screen TV or a big TV was like a big deal because that was incredibly expensive. And these days, like the kind of quality of TV that you can get, like there's some range, but like there's probably a limit to how good a TV you can buy.
You can spend a couple $100 on a good flat screen TV, can't you?
And the differences are kind of minimal. They become like, okay, you're paying a lot more for a slightly better TV. But the kind of necessities of life have become so much more expensive.
You can go on holiday, but you can't buy a house.
Yeah.
Whereas like to my mom, she didn't go on holiday. She didn't eat a red pepper until she was 25, she told me.
Yeah.
She was like, that was just like, it was exotic food.
People didn't go to restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
But now the young people, they love eating out, drinking out, going to cinema. Well, not cinema, but going to meals and things.
You sound like a boomer, mate.
So
you're putting on some stereotypes here.
To be fair, one of the things that has happened with people slightly younger than us is that they don't go out so much, which is kind of complicated mixture of all kinds of things. Is partly the phones, is partly if it's £7 a pint, you sort of can't go. But I think one of the sort of dividing lines, which kind of which you know, it's important not to overlook in terms of the stuff of being able to go on holiday for. You know, not even that it's cheaper, that it's like possible to do that.
Cheaper than a train ticket to go to Europe than to get a train up north.
Easier to fly to Dubai than get a train to Manchester.
Honestly.
And, you know, some of those luxury, you know, we can have oranges aplenty. We can have like, you know, there's all those kind of like things where you go, yeah, no, that is, you know, we can make a sort of TV show thing here, right? And that's like not, you don't have to be the BBC to do that.
Yeah.
However, like the real kind of fundamentals of life. So I was making a project like about housing in the UK specifically earlier this year, and I saw data that was like I can't remember exactly what year it was, sort of during the 70s, I believe. Someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong. Like the average percentage of your pay that you spent on rent went down to like 8%. And you know, even if we give that some wiggle room for either my memory being wrong or for
double it and round it
up.
I'll
be happy with
20% would be certainly in London, right? But actually in a lot of the country, that would be pretty good.
Anywhere there's jobs, anywhere there's like an inner city environment, is going to be near 50%.
Yeah, either somewhere that's luxuriously rural or there's got too much stuff or not enough stuff. Right? Like that's going to be, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
So the kind of fundamental stuff of life has just become so much more expensive, whereas the kind of fun stuff has become, and like again, we shouldn't overlook that. I think that it is nice that we can travel and that we can sort of do all those things, that we have fun kind of stuff in our houses that we can, I don't even know what I'm thinking of. TV, you know, we've got TVs and we've got
phones and VRs and all these kind of things.
Yeah. But kind of when push comes to shove, the kind of core stuff of life has become much, much more expensive.
I've joked before that you sound like a boomer, and what I was getting at is the stereotypes that they like all sides sling at each other. And I think a boomer stereotype, again, I'm stereotyping here, but their pushback will be, I didn't go on holiday, I didn't eat out, and that's why I could buy a house. Whereas now it's like, those things are relatively cheap. I mean, not anymore, eating out's a joke. And Nando's is like a luxury meal now, it seems. But, you know, those things are relatively cheap to today's generation, but buying a house is completely off the cards. It's like both project their experiences at each other, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, like to them eating out was massive luxury and going on a holiday was impossible. But now you can go to Spain for relatively cheap if you want.
And actually, you know, I was chatting to David, who I speak to in the film, where he was like, actually, they sort of looked into it and boomers are the people mostly eating out, like sort of in the sort of boat, like and doing the like
They're in the ivy, like all the millennials.
like doing the big cruises or whatever. Like
you just describing my mom.
Like
Susan,
the,
millions of Susans just going out into the world.
Yeah. I mean, this is completely anecdotal, but I was watching Threads recently. You know, the sort of nuclear bomb in Sheffield. Sort of this BBC TV program that came out. Oh, I'm not going to be able to
Is
say
it
what
really
day.
dark?
It's really dark.
Yeah.
It's like they're like, oh, it's the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
It's the sort of narrative that exists around it. And like, yeah, the second half, well, most of it is about nuclear bomb gets dropped. I think at Sheffield, and it's all horrible. But at the beginning, they're like setting up the characters, and it's like this like working class lad and his girlfriend, and they got loads of free time. They drive around. He looks after pigeons. He's a pigeon fancier, which is, I was like, that's fun. No one does that anymore.
I was waiting for that. I'm like, pigeon fancier.
I was like, oh, that's a hobby that's you never hear it. But they like get pregnant and it's not ideal. But then they buy a house and I was like, so obviously this is a story that you're watching, but you know it's obviously not so ridiculous that when they broadcast this, people were like, how did they suddenly buy a house?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so interesting that's like you couldn't make that film in quite the same way today because people would just be like, well, that's
not realistic.
Impossible.
The nuclear threat might not be, but the
the
pigeon fanciing lad who buys his own house is like that's alien. I wonder in 30 years if they look back at like, you know, the TV and media of today, how it will look alien to them. You know, like to my son who's 11, when he's like watching a show from a classic show from the 20s. Yeah. You know, what will it look like to him, and what will be how will it seem out of touch?
Yeah, what's the stuff that will, you know, will it be flights all the time, like people flying around? Will it be?
Yeah, like that might be completely, the idea of going on holiday might be completely out of it whack.
Yeah, it could just feel like, what a horrific person.
People retired, you know, like what's that? We work till the day we die kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was a clip from our chat with YouTuber Tom Nicholas. To watch a full episode, click right here.